quality doesn't need to be cumbersome. I think that's in the past, a lot of people have just thought about it as more work. It's just effort that nobody sees. They just think, the patient doesn't care if I've got this quality management system or not, but they do.
Hey everyone, welcome to SwitchHubTV. It's your host, Wei and John. Today on the show, we're chatting with Brianna Porter. Brianna has over 15 years experience in the pharmaceutical compounding industry, with roles ranging from compounding technician, business development, technical operations to compliance and quality assurance. More recently, she's launched Flux Pharma Services, an online platform dedicated to support compounding pharmacists in running a high-quality, successful compounding practice. Brianna, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you on the show. Just wanted to start with how and why did you get into science and why pharmacology in particular, I guess?
Well, I actually, I started in my science degree because I was planning on being a speech pathologist. So I didn't get into the speech pathology course that I wanted. So the plan was I'll do science for a year and then I'll transfer. And I kind of stayed. So I picked pharmacology because I did have a background in pharmacy. I'm a pharmacy brat. My dad was a pharmacist. So I grew up around pharmacies, in pharmacies, the whole bit. So I thought, I'll do pharmacology as a major. And then when I started doing it, I actually really enjoyed it. The whole way that drugs interact with the body, but also how your body cells and everything reacts with each other. And it was process driven. It made sense to me. And I stuck with it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So did you spend a lot of your younger years working like in a pharmacy, was that the family business?
Yeah. So, Dad was the only pharmacist. We're not one of the families where, his dad was a pharmacist and his dad was a pharmacist. But no, I definitely grew up in the pharmacy though. I think any child who has a pharmacist as a parent will tell you, you end up, cleaning shelves and serving customers and doing all sorts of stuff from the very beginning. As soon as you can walk, you're in there really. So yeah, I've grown up around it and I've always been in the pharmacy, and even to the point where through uni, I went and worked for other pharmacists in stores as well. So yeah, it's always been in my life.
So has your father, by any chance, wanted you to stay at his own practice?
He did. Admittedly, when I was going through uni, I thought about becoming a pharmacist myself. I had to it was a couple of extra years for a master's and then a reg year as well. And he actually told me not to be a pharmacist.
Was there a reason?
Not that it's a bad thing or anything, but the time that I would have spent doing further education, getting these qualifications, it wouldn't have gained any advantage for what I wanted to do. So, I wasn't planning on going and working in a retail pharmacy store, where I would be dispensing prescriptions and talking to little old ladies. It wasn't really what I was wanting to do. So having a pharmacy degree didn't really make sense. But my dad definitely wasn't a conventional pharmacist.
It's funny. And it's funny actually, because I was going to ask you whether it was some sort of familial pressure sort of thing. But it seemed like it was the exact opposite. And he was actually trying to sway you away from it and you end up doing it anyway. Sort of like an act of rebellion.
That's it. I'm one of 7 children. I think he secretly loves that I'm in it, but I'm one of 7 and I'm the only one that's actually stuck in the pharmacy industry. We've all worked through it at some point, whether it's been in, dispensing in the dispensary or production or something like that, but I'm the only one that's still there. So.
Right. Okay. And we know you spent pretty much ever since you graduated from uni, your whole, I guess, career in pharmaceutical compounding. Can we just take a step back first for people who might not be familiar? What is pharmaceutical compounding? What's it all about? Why is it important? Like, why should we care about it?
Yeah, so compounding pharmacy is a pharmacy that makes medicines. So they don't just pull a box off the shelf and stick a label on it like you would normally see in a pharmacy. They actually get all the ingredients together and they make it from scratch. The reason that pharmacies like this exist is because they are catering to medications that aren't available in in Australia. So they work under a TGA exemption. They don't have to be a TGA manufacturer, as long as they're making a product for a particular patient on a particular prescription. So a compounding pharmacist would manufacture, they make suspensions for babies that wouldn't be available over the counter, where, you know, a mum might normally have to crush up a tablet and put it in milk or something like that, which is not ideal. It's not the way that you should be dosing children. But it's a big industry in Australia because we have a lot of things that we miss out on. So in the US, there's a lot more medications which are available commercially, but because Australia has such a small population, it's not really worth it to the drug companies. So drug companies are able to register a new product over in the US for probably a similar amount, and they have access to, you know, 400 million people, whereas they spend that same money in Australia and they've got access to 21 million, and that's if they have access to everybody. These are often drugs that are catering to 2 to 4% of the population at most. So you've got these people that they need these medications, they need these life-saving things, but it's not available on the shelf for them. And that's where compounders come in and they fill that gap for them.
And just a dumb side question, where are these prescriptions coming from? Are they coming from pharmacists or GPs, or, and how does, like, I guess, a pharmacist know what would need to be compounded in order to, you know, achieve a desired outcome for a particular patient?
Like what ingredients and how they source it, I guess, right?
There's all sorts. It's a whole world unto itself. So the prescriptions, to start at the beginning, they come from prescribers. There are some things that compounders can make without a prescription if they're non-scheduled items, according to the poisons regulations. But for the most part, they do come from prescriptions from doctors, more to do with specialists rather than GPs. There are some GPs and there are some prescriptions that GPs will write, but you'll find that you're dealing with specialists because you've got unusual cases or patient groups which have specialist needs. So pediatrics is a big one, as I said before. What else? Dermatology is a really big area for compounding as well. So you get dermatologists write a lot of prescriptions that way. But so that's where they come from, and that's where the requests come from. And that sort of prescribing might come from studies. So it could be that they know of a product overseas that's not available here. It could be that it's, you know, to do with research. Clinical research is another area that compounders cater to as well. So there's a whole range of places where these prescriptions are being generated from. Compounders have to have training, obviously. They are taught some compounding training in university, but in Australia, we don't have a massive focus on complex compounding. So
Right.
There's kind of a new version, I guess you could say, of compounding these days, which we call complex compounding. So before, compounding might have been, you know, a nappy rash cream or coal tar in a sorbeline cream, something like that. Quite basic, you know, one thing mixed with another. But through the years, it's become a lot more scientific, and there's a lot more to do with equipment, calculations, so making capsules and things now. Which involves some complex calculations. So the pharmacists do need to seek out further education for that kind of thing. It's not something that they necessarily get taught in pharmacy school. Some of them do. There are some schools that do some, you know, capsuling and things like that. But for the most part, it's more simple compounding that they're doing at university. So
No, I hear it. It's not easy to sum up pharmacology in like a few minutes.
Seems complicated indeed.
Yeah, it's like, look, I could talk about compounding for days on end without stopping, I don't think.
Yeah, that sounds like it. So as we sort of mentioned in your intro, you do have extensive experience in pharmaceutical compounding, of course, you know, ranging from being, you know, a compounder on the I guess the lab floor, compounding the medicines, but then, you know, transitioning into business development and then technical quality, you know, compliance, all that sort of stuff. So
Yep.
what was it like going through those transitions? Because it seems like some of them are really in opposition with each other. If you think of like someone like a business development manager, and then, going into like quality or QA, so.
Yeah, definitely.
What's,
No, I think it's kind of like evidence of I'm calling it my undiagnosed ADHD. I'm that person that likes to press the button and see what it does. So I guess the way that I kind of came into those roles was that over the years when these things came up and said, oh, we're looking to hire somebody to do this, and I go, okay, I'll do it. And, just kind of put my hand up each time. And I think it was probably more of a journey of discovery for me as to what I wanted to do, because as I said, I went to uni thinking I was going to be a speech pathologist. I wasn't planning on being in the compounding industry. I haven't had this sort of lifelong dream of this is the job that I'm going to have when I grow up. I've never been that way. But in saying that, through the different roles that I've done, and I think the kind of companies I've worked in as well have given me the opportunity to try so many different things and take the opportunities that come up, and basically test out whether I like it or not. So, through all these jobs, so business development, I know that I like talking to people. I like talking to people. I like to solve their problems. But what I did learn is that I don't like sales. I'm not a salesperson. I don't like pushing things on people because that's my target. I'm happy to sell people things if that's what I think they need, but it doesn't make me very comfortable pushing sales. Some people are just born salespeople and, that's their thing. But I was involved in setting up quality management systems within the companies that I worked at, which I really enjoyed. And I've kind of worked out over the years, I like having a process for things. I like to have, policies, and, if you got to write everything down, have it written down, this is the way we do it. And I think that kind of stuck out to me, that was what I really enjoyed doing. I was really lucky in my job at Fagron that I had two mentors that were fantastic. They were my direct reports, but they really pushed me to look at what I was doing and if I actually enjoyed what I was doing or not. And it was through that process, and at the time it was uncomfortable, but it was good. Coming through the other side, I felt so much better about what I was doing in my job. I was able to sort of voice to managers and to other people within the company what I wanted to do. And it just sort of gave me a lot more direction because, as I said, I like helping people solve their problems. I like to pass knowledge on. People ask me one question and I tend to go on. So that's the thing that I really liked. And so when I had my daughter, I realized that I was spending a lot of time doing a job that I didn't really 100% enjoy. And so I made a change and I said, okay, well, I know that I like to help people. I know I like to impart knowledge and to support, and I like process. And that's when I moved on to do Verify by myself.
Yeah. Okay. And which sort of segues really well into what you launched recently, Flux Pharma.
Yes.
So can you give us a bit of a blurb about what's Flux Pharma about? What's the gap that you guys are trying to address?
Yeah, sure. So what I have noticed, again, throughout my multiple jobs that I've had within the industry, is that there was this gap in pharmacist education. They had access to basic compounding education at pharmacy school. A lot of the pharmacy schools were very focused on clinical and retail management and community pharmacy side of things, the traditional model of you have a store where people come in, they buy in nappies and things like that. But on the other hand, there is also continuing education for how to make the more complex products, such as capsules and creams and troches and all sorts of stuff like that. And they had a practical training for that. There was a couple of companies that did things, which are all fantastic syllabuses. But there was this gap in the middle where people would go, okay, I've come out of uni, I know how to run a shop, I know how to make the products, but the actual running of the compounding practice in the middle was missing. And they basically said, I want to start compounding practice. What do I do? And me as a wholesaler, they were coming to me as a wholesaler, and they come to other companies that sell products to them and say, what do I need to do to set up? And from my perspective, I didn't think that should have been the case. You know, this sort of knowledge and this sort of education should be coming from somewhere that's not trying to sell you more stuff. So the idea of Flux is to help fill that gap. So we look at quality management systems. So as I keep saying, processes and everything I think are key. You can't do anything. And I'm sure you guys with your background would totally agree that quality management and quality assurance, it's the backbone of everything. It's the reason you do things the way you do it. So that to me was a really important thing that needed to be drilled down on. That was something that was covered here and there. It might have been a part of these practical training courses, but it wasn't focused on. And even to this day, there's a lot of people out there when you say, oh, you know, you need to do this particular type of documentation. And you get this sort of blank look of, oh, I know that word, but I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean I've got to have documentation? And it's been, so that sort of stuff. And I wanted to have that ad hoc education that would support them in that. But I've also teamed up with Matt Chalmers, who's my business partner, and he's a business development manager from a compounding pharmacy. And his focus for Flux is the business, and he has a lot of connections with doctors and things. So we've involved clinical aspect of the education as well to flesh it out a bit. So it looks, it's a really nice piece that's come together now, which covers off the business side, how to sell your compounding pharmacy to prescribers and things like that. How to do your quality management systems, but also we've included these interesting things. So promoting so much, but educating these pharmacists on different clinical areas that compounding can be applied to. So it just brings it all together. They've got the skills from other places for how to make it, and we've just filled the gaps for them.
Yeah, I'll let John slide in with a question.
Yeah, so I do have a couple of questions. Out of curiosity. Yeah. So you said that you are a a verified compounding consultant, right? What does it take to become a consultant? Like, do you need a license for that, or like what kind of extensive knowledge do you need?
So my company's Verified Compounding. I'm not a verified consultant, but I guess, my industry knowledge, and it's something I had a lot of people coming to me on my experience. And to be a consultant, I think if you've got industry experience, that's priceless. Obviously, if you've got extra training along with that would be fantastic. I'm very close to finishing off my ISO 9001 auditing certificate. So, I'm a big believer in lifelong learning. But it's, I don't think it's so much about the qualifications all the time. It's more about where you've been. So, and I think, for compounding especially, it's such a experience-driven industry.
Oh, I see. So it's mostly pretty much with the experience that you have and the training that other companies provide you. As long as you can give the knowledge that what they need, then of course they're going to be coming to you to speak of what it needs to be done. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. And it's because with compounding, it's a very, there's not really a course that you can do that says, I am a compounding consultant. I think, outside of companies that have, other activities such as, selling products and things like that, I'm the only independent compounding consultant that I know of. There's a couple of pharmacists here and there that do advise, but I think I'm the only person that solely concentrates on it.
All right. So in regards to
Mhm.
Flux, if I
Yes.
may ask, with Flux, so with your roles in multiple industries, such as being a compounding technician, QA,
Mhm.
a consultant, how does those multiple roles and experience help you build Flux Pharma?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And
I think it's
how do you
that's
take?
where it's come from.
Yeah. And
Because I
how does
think
it?
unless you've been in the pharmacy, you don't see those gaps. And talking to other pharmacists, and I know especially since doing my consulting role and working with different pharmacies all over the country, you do see those gaps. And it's something that pharmacists, they're looking for it. They don't have the CPD available to them. It's very limited in our industry, the actual availability of CPD content. And so I think being in the pharmacies and actually talking to the people, it's not something that I've just gone, yeah, that's what we need education on. It's come from the people that are doing it. They said, I need to know these things. I haven't heard of this before, or can you teach me about, and they'll ask you topics that you can, give them more information on. So it's something that I definitely think being in the industry has helped me to build on.
A question for our future entrepreneurs. Was there any stage, during the planning stages or like prior to launch where, you had doubts about Flux Pharma? And also, I mean, given that, we're still in the depths of COVID-19, how did that impact or affect the rollout?
Are you
Have
asking me
some
if
things
I'm
been harder?
crazy? Are you
Pretty
asking if I'm
much.
crazy for starting a business in the middle of a pandemic?
So
That what we
how's
kind of
that
did
been?
as well.
And
Look,
did you have doubts along the way?
I think everybody does when they're starting up something new. You can't help that little voice in the back of your head going, oh, but what if it doesn't work? Or what if nobody listens to it? But I think the reception we've had so far, it's just self-talk. You've just got to ignore that little voice every now and then, push it back to the very depths of your brain. But I think everybody has a bit of self-doubt, whether it's founded or not is another thing. So yeah, it's especially during COVID, because it has presented us with a few issues. I'm located in Sydney, so we're currently in lockdown. So that's been fun. That's kind of put a few things back with filming and that sort of stuff, because my partner and I do film in person. So that has pushed that sort of thing back a little bit. But we're all still, it's all still chugging ahead, which is good. I think it's a good thing that we're in the pharmacy industry. I don't think it's been impacted as much as others. So, where we are sort of locked down and working from home and things like that, I think that, yeah, we're much better off than other industries. Whether starting a company in the middle of a pandemic was a good idea, we shall see. But, I think it's moved ahead as it would anyway. I don't think that the pandemic has stopped me from achieving what I would have achieved anyway. And I think you just got to push through. I guess, my other company, Verify Compounding, I started that when I was 6 months pregnant with my second child. So, again, probably not the best time to start a new company, but it's nearly 3 years later on that one, and I'm still here. So
There's
I
never a
think
best time, right?
there really isn't. There really isn't. There's always going to be something. And I guess if you let yourself be impacted by those excuses, there's always going to be something to stop you.
I'm going to
You
save
just
the
got to
last question for
get through.
I'm going to save the last question for John. But I do want to sneak in one. So not to put you on the spot, but what do you think will be the biggest, I guess, opportunities and challenges for pharmaceutical compounding coming up within the next few years?
Ooh, biggest opportunities and challenges. Or challenges, I can tell you straight away what that would be. We are in the midst of a lot of regulatory change. So that's going to be a big challenge for pharmacies going forward to see. It just depends on where the regulators go with everything. We have unfortunate situation where the people who have the time to write these things and to contribute to these things, more often than not, there are some exceptions. I know some wonderful people that do contribute, but for the most part, we've got a lot of people without the knowledge that don't work in the industry.
We know those people
that are setting the rules. Yeah. Whereas, the people that have the knowledge and have the experience that need to be contributing to these things don't have the time. They're busy running their practices. So it's a really tricky situation, and it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of sort of bubblings beneath the surface in the regulatory space at the moment to see where that goes. But I guess, the biggest opportunity and, one of the key messages of Flux as well is quality compounding. It's about doing things the right way. There's been a lot of people in the industry that have been left unchecked for a very long time, and they're about to be checked. So for those pharmacies that are doing the right thing, that are putting the effort in, that are implementing these quality management systems and doing the documentation, writing it down, it's going to make a difference for them. And I think that's a real opportunity to not just stay afloat, but to grow. And I think that it's something that has been missed in the past, but if you've got a good quality management system, quality doesn't need to be cumbersome. I think that's, in the past, a lot of people have just thought about it as more work. It's just effort that nobody sees. They just think, the patient doesn't care if I've got this quality management system or not, but they do. Everybody wants their medication to be the right thing, right? So I think that's a big opportunity. And with everything that's coming out, we're becoming a lot more connected with the internet and everything. I think the pandemic has brought that out, and I think if we can expand on our online connections with everybody, our industry can really grow and collaborate with each other as well.
So one last question. With Flux Pharma, do you have any big plans that you're allowed to talk to about?
We've got lots of big plans. It's all secret.
Secretive. All right, let's replace with another question then, may I? Any advice for those who wants to get into the compounding industry, or any advice for entrepreneurs who want to start their startup just like you do?
If you want to get into compounding, call me.
Go to fluxpharma.com.au.
That's it. Exactly right. You got it. Okay, yeah. If you want to get into compounding, do your research. Have a read of everything. Talk to people. Call compounding pharmacists. You'd be surprised who will actually talk to you. I know, it's something that hasn't happened much until recently. But do your research, have a read all your boring legislations and standards and guidelines, and there's lots to be known there that people don't think of straight up. For entrepreneurs, I guess the biggest thing that served me is, taking the opportunities that come to you. Don't sort of overthink your plan too much. If in the beginning, if you're too focused, you might miss out on that opportunity. If I'd stuck with my plan in the beginning, I definitely wouldn't have been here. So, be open to opportunities, I think, is the best way to put it. Don't say no just because it's not exactly what you planned.
So just start and figure it out on the way, right? Just start.
Right. That's it. Nothing like the deep end, I say.
Thanks for your time, Brianna.
No worries. Thank you very much, guys.